Welcome everyone to week number 4 in Biology 120. This is a good week for us this week. It's all about energy use and how we metabolize food and how we make food. And so that's a really important topic in biology because it really drives all of biology forward, right? If we don't have the ability to either make or consume food, then we cannot survive. So it's a very important topic this week. So let us take a look at what's going on. Let's see if this week I can actually switch between my slides. I'm not sure. Okay, here we go. That's a whale tale from 2019 when I went whale watching. So anyway, last week, what did we learn about? We learned about classification of organisms. That's important because that tells us things about organisms in a category. We understand things about organisms that are classified together, right? They have similar characteristics. So that's important for us. We learned about types of cells like prokaryotic, which are also called bacterial cells, and eukaryotic cells, which would be everything else on the planet, including our cells. And we learned about cell structures, especially when you answered that question about why do antibiotics, which are chemicals that kill bacteria, why do antibiotics target bacterial cells and not our cells? That's very important because we have some different cell structures, and that's what those antibiotics target. We talked about antibiotic resistance in bacteria. This is a very, very important issue in the state of health in the world today because we are running out of effective antibiotics. Bacteria become antibiotic resistant faster than we can produce new ones or discover new ones, new antibiotics. So it's a very important topic these days. All right, this week is all about, like I said, energy production, and that means in the form of ATP, breaking down food to produce ATP. ATP is adenosine triphosphate. It's the most important energy molecule of cells. There are some others, but ATP is the most important one. So think about it as the currency, energy currency in cells. And that means from bacterial cells all the way up to us and beyond, right? ATP. Well, how do we do that? We do that through chemical reactions. We use aerobic respiration. Quite a few of you mentioned that in the week before's discussion board postings, I think it was. Aerobic respiration. We use oxygen in order to break down our food to make what? ATP molecules. So, there are other organisms on the planet that do something called anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic means without oxygen. Fermentation is another anaerobic process where you can make ATP from food, but without using oxygen. Now, this is pretty complicated. It's complicated in your textbook in these chapters. I have a video, a short little video that helps explain this. You can also look it up on YouTube if you want to, but I explain it in more simple terms and what are the difference between these three processes in this short little video in my announcement. So go watch that. Now, I tell you here to skim chapters 6, 7, and 8. They are very complicated, let's just say. They are very complicated. You don't have to know every single little detail of them. So skim through them. Get the main ideas of these sections of these 3 chapters in your textbook. Read your Module 4 introduction and watch the video on carbonated oceans, the carbonated ocean, how carbon dioxide is diffusing, that excess of carbon dioxide is diffusing into the ocean and it's making the ocean become more acidic. That's going to be important for this week. Okay, so what do you have to do this week? You got 3 things to do. This is a big week. So you got 3 things to do. You have discussion board postings, you have a journal entry, and you have your next assignment, milestone 2, for your final project. So you get a lot going on. All right, so let's get started with some instructions. your discussion board postings are about photosynthesis and cellular respiration. So let's back up just a second. So what the heck is photosynthesis? Photosynthesis is where some organisms on this planet called autotrophs, meaning self-feeders, some of the autotrophs use photosynthesis to make their food. They make glucose. Glucose, most important food source in all of biology. Photosynthesizers make glucose. What do they make it from? Oxygen and carbon dioxide. With what? The use of ATP. Yep, you have to have some of that energy molecule in order to stick all these molecules together and make a molecule of glucose, which then you can use as food. So that's what photosynthesis is. Taking oxygen and carbon dioxide and making glucose. All right. Then what is cellular respiration? Taking glucose and breaking it down into what? Carbon dioxide and oxygen, releasing oxygen. And you produce more ATP. Now, don't they sound kind of opposite? So let's look at this question. Are photosynthesis and cellular respiration processes opposite? Sounds kind of like it. Or complementary, or both? Okay, anytime anyone asks you a question like this, you know the answer is both. How do you know that? Because otherwise they wouldn't have said that. They would have said, are these processes opposite or complementary? Yeah. If they say or both, that means they're both. Definitely. So you got to figure out how to explain that. So one other thing here. The organisms that do photosynthesis also do cellular respiration. So in one process, you're making glucose. In the other process, you're breaking it down. So what in the world? Why would you make your own food and then you break the same food down? So that's going to be the trick. You figure out the answer to that. Autotrophs, are they the foundation of all ecosystems? So autotrophs are self-feeders. They're the ones that do photosynthesis. Are they the foundation of all ecosystems? This will be interesting to see what you come up with. And in your response post, you're going to talk about the excessive release of carbon dioxide through the burning of fossil fuels. Here we go with that topic again. And its consequences like what? Like the acidification of the ocean, like the heating up of the surface of the earth. Yeah, it's all those. All right, so those are your discussion board postings. Remember, initial post is due by Thursday. The 2 response posts are due by Sunday. Then you have a journal entry, and it is comparing anaerobic and aerobic processes where ATP is produced. This is where my video will come in. My video will help you. So please watch this short little video about these processes. So anaerobic respiration can be broken down into fermentation or specifically anaerobic respiration. You're also going to talk about whether glycolysis, which is the first step in every one of these processes, whether glycolysis should be considered the most ancient form of energy production. It's a pathway. It's a series of chemical steps. That's all a pathway is. Series of chemical steps where ATP is produced. So we want to know how ancient glycolysis probably is. Watch my video. And then you're going to discuss ethanol as a biofuel and whether biofuels are good, whether they could be helpful, whether they are completely problem-free, shall we say. So that will also be part of your journal entry. And then you got that third assignment. So here that comes. All right. I put this on the screen. I'm not going to go into great detail about this, but I will emphasize this. This is milestone 2 for your final project. You have chosen a topic by now, okay? The second milestone is all about the biology of your project. Isn't that the whole point of this project? Yeah, to make connections between biological concepts and whatever it is, this hot topic that you have chosen. So At what level of organization does your topic impact living things? So if you chose looking at endangered species like bald eagles, for example, if that's the topic that you've chosen, the level of organization that your topic impacts living beings is the species level. Go back to that classification system that we just went over. The species level and the population. So a population is members of the same species that live together in a location at a particular time. If you're talking about global warming, your level of organization is the whole biome. So it affects every living being on this planet, whether they're up in the atmosphere or down into the depths of the ocean. Okay, so that's what that means. Analyze, so the next section, you need to analyze 3 biological concepts or processes. Remember when you turn these in that you're making this in outline form with these headings, but with also detail. Analyze 3 biological concepts or processes. So in my example here, I chose eutrophication. So most students don't pick this. But anyway, eutrophication is really an aging out process of lakes and ponds. They fill up with silt. They fill up with organic material over time, and eventually, over long periods of time, of course, but eventually the lakes and ponds go away. This is eutrophication. So if this is your topic, photosynthesis is a good biological concept that goes along with this because organisms in that water do photosynthesis. And they have to have clear water in order to do this. So that could be one of your biological concepts. I think this is the section that most students have trouble with. And if you do, all you have to do is email me and I will be glad to help you out with this. If you can't figure out what in the world is a biological concept that has anything to do with your topic, okay? If you're doing global warming, greenhouse gases, whatever, the carbon cycle is really important. So the carbon cycle through the world. How does carbon and carbon dioxide cycle through organisms of the world and go back into the atmosphere, and then what happens to it? So something like that is important. 3 biological concepts. Relationship to the topic. Explain how photosynthesis relates to eutrophication, in my example here. In section B, analysis, all you're doing is explaining what the 3 biological concepts are. What do they mean, right? Then C, you're connecting them to your topic. D, characteristics of life. Analyze and illustrate how one of those characteristics of life, remember in week 1, are affected by your process, one of these biological concepts or processes. And the impact on health. Select one of these processes that you've given me in section B and describe its impact on human health or environmental health or both. That's fine with me. Any way you want to do that. Support your response with real life examples. So that's important too. This is the most important section of your final project because this is where all the biology is described. You may have trouble with this part. I don't know how much biology you already know, and if you don't know much, you're going to be stumped by this. All you have to do is ask me. I'll be glad to give you help with this. So that's the 3rd thing that you have to turn in. Of course, that's due by Sunday night. All right, tip of the week. Where'd my name go? No one knows. Let me see if I can get it on here. Here we go. Okay. I cannot help but mess this up every week. Tip of the week. Ask for help if you get stumped. Please ask me for help. I'm here to help you. I'm willing to help you anytime. So all you have to do is ask me. Isn't this a beautiful picture here? This is a malachite kingfisher. I saw this in Africa and it was absolutely gorgeous. Teeny tiny little birds, but it's so beautiful, magnificent. Anyway, there's my name, Dr. Janie Sigmon, m.sigmon@snhu.edu. I'm here if you need me. All you have to do is call on me. I always answer within 24 hours. Sometimes I answer within minutes, depending on if I'm looking at my phone or not at the moment. So please ask if you need some help. This is a really good week. It's a really good week full of lots of biology. So get busy early because it's going to take you all week to get through these assignments this week. With that being said, I hope that you have a wonderful week this week.